Hello everyone, welcome to the first installment of this p5js tutorial. In this video, we'll set up our project and load the font we're going to use. First, we need to set up our sketch file. We'll be using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for this. In HTML, we need to add the OpenType.js and p5js libraries. We also need to add a style sheet. In CSS, we'll remove the margins from the HTML and body tag and set the canvas display to block. If you ever get stuck setting up, check the p5js web editor for an initial setup. In JavaScript, we'll set up p5 in instance mode. It's best to do it this way because if you want to incorporate p5js sketches in a website with other JavaScript files like I did with my website in Squarespace, there's no interference between the two. It's safer generally. So for example, if you use the print method from p5js, it triggers the print function in the browser rather than log to the console. Imagine it with other JavaScript libraries and what it can trigger. The setup includes defining the preload setup and draw functions. The preload function is used for anything that needs loading, such as fonts, images, or any p5js compatible files. The setup function is used for initializing the sketch or canvas setup, while the draw function is where the animation interactivity happens, just like processing. Finally, we'll call the p5js instance. I like to call it with both arguments, the sketch reference, as in the function in which all of the code is written, and the container or parent element where the canvas is going to be nested. Loading fonts is the next step. We have two options, loading from a local file or Adobe Fonts. Technically any URL from which you can get font information, but I'll demonstrate with Adobe Fonts because that's what I used. For local files, we'll use p5js load bytes function inside preload. We'll then parse the font using OpenType.js and check if the font is supported where we will initialize the font path. For Adobe Fonts, it's a very similar process, except we'll get the web font URL from Adobe Fonts instead of simply loading it from the local directory. We can do that by creating a web project in Adobe Fonts and adding the desired fonts to the project. We'll use load bytes as well with the URL inside preload, which we can get by opening the project fonts URL in a browser and getting the OpenType URL for the desired font. The next step is exactly similar to the local font method, where we parse the font using OpenType.js, then check if the font is supported before using it. Leave that empty for part 2, and just be proud of your progress for now.